Thanks, Paul. So I'd just like to thank the organisers for asking us here today. We've had some great debates and discussions in the previous groups. So just to kick it off, I just put up this bullet point onto the board and just about how profitability should be assessed, and I think this is important because there's a lot of debate about, you know, milk yield per cow and profitability per cow, but in effect profitability should only be assessed based on the most limiting resource on your farm. So for most of you, I'm guessing that's capital. So you're looking at return on investment, return on assets. In Ireland, probably the big restriction is in terms of land. A number of years ago it would have been milk quotas, but now it's land. So essentially in Ireland we express things per hectare more so than per hectare, or per return on assets. So just looking at this graph here, looking at milk price, and we're looking at milk price over the period 95 to 2016. And just a couple of points I want to get through from this graph. You have Ireland, EU and New Zealand milk price. I just want you to focus on pre-2005 and after 2005. What happened in 2005? In 2005, essentially the Common Agricultural Policy within the EU decided to pull back from the market, stop intervening. Up to then, if milk price was dropping, it bought product from the market, put it into intervention and sold it back out when the world market got a bit stronger again. There's two effects that has had on you as New Zealand farmers. The first thing it had was it was regulating the world market. It was actually keeping the world market more stable than it is today. So basically volatility now is a lot more than you've seen in the past, but it also, which wasn't so nice for you obviously, was depressing the world market. So now you can see that your price has gone much closer to EU and Ireland price with the same level of volatility, or sorry, with an increased level of volatility. And just, can you imagine EU producers, how they feel when they had up to here, they hadn't really seen what volatility is at all, and now they're really exposed to volatility. And there was a bit of discussion yesterday about how good or how bad this volatility is. And for me, if you're a low-cost producer, even though there's pain involved, it's a positive thing. Because if you can imagine, milk cost of production in the likes of Germany, the likes of France, at 40 euro cent a litre, they're completely exposed to milk price volatility. If you are a low-cost producer, you can ride out the lows and make money when milk price is high. Final point about that graph is that graph is what you're going to look at. If we were standing here in 10 years' time again, all we're going to see is something similar going out into the future. So milk price volatility is something we have to live with, and it's your responsibility as business people to set up your business that it can survive those downturns. I don't think it's going to be as easy to come out of these downturns into the future as it has in the past. So this slide here, this graph here, shows the relationship between grass utilised per hectare and profit per hectare. So I think that's put up about 3 times yesterday. I'm putting it up, Mark's putting it up. And if there's anything you take from this whole conference, it's that graph. The more grass you utilise, the more profitable you'll be. And it's really simple. And all of the data, whether it's Irish data, New Zealand data, UK data, it's all showing the same thing. The more grass that you utilise, the more profitable you'll be. Every extra tonne is worth $294 in Ireland. In New Zealand, in one of the slides you'll see in a second from Mark, it's identical. So the exact same number in terms of the effect on profitability. So it's a very robust measure in terms of what effect it's having on profitability. So last year we looked at what are the factors driving profitability in our dairy business. And we took our National Farm Survey, which is a representative sample of dairy farms over the period 2008 to 2015. So a very long 8-year sample, 350 farms selected by the CSO, so they're very robustly sampled. They're not like self-selecting, so they're a good database to look at. And we looked at the factors driving profitability within those farms. So the first thing is grass utilised, and these are all highly significant impacts. So the first part is cost. So increasing grass utilisation by 3 tonnes, take a figure of 3 tonnes, increase cost by $1,275 per hectare, or it reduced cost per kilo of milk solids by 31 cents. Since we calf rate, we use a different database and we don't have the cost structure there. Purchase feed, we feed on average about a tonne of concentrate per cow, increasing that by 50%, which is a half a tonne, increased cost by $848 per hectare, or 46 cents per kilo milk solids, so a huge implication in cost. Buildings and investments, extra $1,700, increased cost by $211 and $17. And an increase in milk yield per cow increased cost by $46 per hectare, but a reduced cost per kilo milk solids. And we'll deal with this a little bit more in a second. So, what was the implication in terms of profitability? $294 multiplied by 3 is 882. So for every extra 3 tonne, it increased profitability by $882. So scale that up to a 100 hectare farm, you can see that that's $88,000 for an increase, 3 tonne increase in utilisation. It increased profit per kilo milk solids by 36 cents. Increasing 6-week calf rate. You use 6-week in calf rate, we use 6-week calf rate, the difference being the heifers. We include the heifers in our calving rate. That increased profitability by $390 per hectare, or 29 cents. The purchase feed. Increasing purchase feed increased profitability by $165 per hectare. Sorry, reduced profitability by $165 per hectare, or 36 cents per kilo of insult. So John talked yesterday about marginal responses. He talked about the increases in cost. Our data over a period where we had milk price up to 40 cents a litre and down to 22 cents a litre has shown that increasing supplement, the farmers that increase supplement reduce their profitability. And fairly significantly. Increasing investments, buildings, the people that have more money invested in buildings have less profit. Interestingly, and you might say to yourself here, are we confusing the message here with this point? And this is what the data say. Increasing milk yield per cow, increased profitability by 25 kilos I've taken here, increased profitability per hectare by $139, or 6 cents per kilo milk solids. That's an interesting one. So basically, increase in milk yield per cow has a positive effect on profitability. But if we look at it here in terms of purchase feed, increase in purchase feed reduce profitability. So if you increase milk yield per cow and it doesn't come from purchase feed, where does it come from? Grass utilisation. So in effect, this figure here is driving this figure here once it doesn't come from purchase feed. So that's why that was happening. And the other point here is why milk yield per cow is not a good KPI at all. What's the easiest way to increase milk yield per cow? Feeder. So we know that if we have this as a KPI in terms of milk yield per cow, that'll incentivize or encourage people to feed more, and we know that will reduce profitability. So milk yield per cow is never a KPI that should be identified as a driver of a business into the future. So then just as we go along and take a picture of Ireland, you might have got a sense from us over the last couple of days that we're overly, we're very positive about our dairy industry in Ireland, given where we are nationally. And Brendan put this up yesterday, but it's not hard to remember. We're still only utilising 7.8 tonnes of grass. We're still stocking 1.9 livestock units per hectare. We're producing about 680 kilos of milk solids. 6-week calf rate is 63%. We're feeding roughly 900 kilos of concentrate, and our labour efficiency is 30 hours per cow. The one very positive thing about that is that all of these metrics, in terms of herbage utilised, in the last 7-8 years, that has increased by 1.3 tonne per hectare. So that's worth somewhere in the order of $120 million. 6-week calf rate has gone from 55 up to 63% in the last 5 years. We're going the right way. From what I understand, and I'm only in the country 7 or 8 days, from what I understand in the New Zealand industry, utilisation is flat or declining, and 6-week calf rate might also be declining. So that's something that you need to be really worried about as an industry. So just in terms of our targets, target is to utilise 13 tonne. These targets come, basically we sat down with a group of the real top farmers in the country and set out what these targets should be. Utilise 13 tonnes, stock at 2.9 livestock. If we utilise 13 tonnes, we can stock at 2.9 livestock units per hectare. The amount we utilise drives our stocking rate. Milk output per hectare is somewhere between 1350 and 1400, achieving a 90% 6-week calving rate with less than 450 kilograms of purchase feed and 16 hours per cow. So that's what our target is for our system. The top 10% of farmers are not at that target, but they're close. The top 1% of farmers are hitting those targets.
Lauren, can you just mention the 90% because it's a bit different than our...
Yeah.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. Sorry.
Wake up, Paul.
So then, what does all this mean in terms of financials? First thing is the national average, including labour, net profit of $804 per hectare, or return on assets of 1.7%. That's where we are nationally. Our target situation generates $4,200 per hectare, or 7.6%. So, there's huge gains to be got from moving our technology from the left to the right. So then if we look at expansion, and expansion through leasing is really the model that's operated in Ireland, leasing land. Essentially what we can see here is if we put a charge of $750 on land to rent, we can see that profitability dropped from $804 down to about $39. A return on assets 1.6%. Complete disaster, something we absolutely recommend farmers not to do in terms of expansion in that situation. So this farmer here should be targeting efficiency. If you're national average, you move to the target. That should be your focus zone. If you're over here to target, what do you do? Well, you're making $4,200 per hectare. If you lease land at $750, $800 a hectare, your profitability will drop. So it goes from 4.2 down to 3.4. But look at your return on assets. Because you have a much lower investment for that expansion area, your return on assets is 21%. And that's when you include the facilities when you take on the farm. So you take on the farm and you build the additional facilities. We're talking about a return on assets of 21%. If you walk onto a farm that's set up, that could be closer to 40% in terms of the return with that level of performance. So our message to farmers essentially, if you're in this category here, national average, you should target efficiency. If you're over on the right hand side, replicate. And it's very important it's replicate and not system change. So just to finish up, what we would say is it's a very uncertain world in terms of milk price, in terms of climate. There's options for you to take control of your business and put yourself in a position that you can survive milk price volatility and so on. In Ireland, there has been significant progress made at farm level. So there is strong progress being made at farm level. Obviously, there's potential for further progress. You could look at that, where we are versus the target negatively, or you could look at it positively. There's huge progress that can be made at farm level, and that's something that we focus on, or that we're focusing on at farm level. Always focus on the technologies that increase profitability. You've heard a lot about that in the last 2 days. Always focus on them. And for us, and I think it should be, a strong message, is that you first focus on efficiency before you replicate. Trying to replicate a system that's not working is not a very smart thing to do. And finally, never compromise on system. If we look, 10 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago, looking into New Zealand, we just looked in with envy, and you had a very tight, very simple system. Looking in today, you seem to have compromised that system, and it's something I think that you need to look at, but it's something that's very easily looked at within your own industry.
Right. Thanks. Okay. Thanks, Laurence. Sorry, just tune out for 1 minute there, but I'm back on track. So, Laurence, just in terms of there's a very clear target that you've got here. It's sort of a nice describable system. If I was a farmer coming to Ireland and I said, right, I'm starting off, tell me what system to run, you would say, run that system. Now we've got the 1 to 5 sort of approach over here. Just give us your view on what you think the future of that should be here, and are you going to be taking that up in Ireland? I sort of know the answer to this one.
So we've been looking into New Zealand, the 5-system approach for the last 5 or 6 years. And we're looking, Mark's data showing no effect, if not a reduction in profitability. Previous papers have shown something similar. There seems to be a huge amount of conversation about what system you're in and deciding what system you're in, instead of focusing on the things that drive your efficiency forward, your business forward, like 6-week calf rate, like grass utilised per hectare. I just think it's a very big waste of energy in an industry trying to characterise systems when there's absolutely no benefit to do it. And all you're doing is annoying people, trying to decide which system they are and trying to characterise. The KPIs for the industry should be the same, and there should, for me, we would be very worried about the introduction of those 5 systems, and we would do what we would to block them coming into the Irish industry.
Okay. It's pretty blunt.
The question's not quite about profitability, but I haven't heard it over this 2 days. But wintering in Ireland, like I'm from Southland, we've got issues with wintering down there, sort of a long winter period. How do you guys do it over there? Is it a barn? And when does that come into your stocking rate and your profitability?
Okay, yeah. So our system essentially, so the first thing is that we get very little growth over the winter. Maybe 5 kilos, maybe 10 kilos, maybe 0, depending on where. So we don't get much growth. So essentially, in most farms, cows are housed for a two-month period. So all cows will be dry towards the end of November, depending on availability of grass, quite similar to what you do here, and in their house for that until probably the 1st of February cows start calving again. So that's just part of our system.
Any winter crops?
So a number of years ago there was quite a bit of winter crops, and that has dramatically declined. And we've done a lot of work around looking at the economics of the different crops. Fodder beet was by a country mile the most attractive from a financial point of view because of the yield, very low cost. But we had issues with it in terms of being able to graze it, and this is instead of the cows moving towards the crop, the kind of field moved towards the cows in certain circumstances. We get very wet over the winter period at times. So in times, some years it's very easy to graze, other times it can be quite difficult. So generally cows are housed, that can be roughly 2 months in terms of 2 months, 10 weeks, and that's generally on grass silage, and it's some sort of a cheap housing option. Generally in a lease farm situation, all of the new housing options are topless cubics because they're concrete, but they're cheap versus stone roof on. Working out somewhere around 500 to 600 euros per cow for that housing option. So it's a balance. I suppose 10 years ago we used the pads, the bark mulch pads, and we moved. Most farmers have moved away from them for one simple reason: that bark mulch got quite expensive because the biofuel industry started to demand the bark mulch, and that meant that it could cost 60 to 70 and maybe 80 euros a cow for the winter for bark mulch. So that's moved us away from it.
Okay, sorry, well, I've just got one over here. It was before, and then, yep, we'll come to you.
Just a question regarding the first graph or lot numbers. The purchase fee, the 50% there, is that including just the direct costs, or is it also including the variable costs and capital as well?
Yeah, so it includes all costs. We look at the relationship between purchase fee and so it includes all costs in that analysis. Yeah, and it's showing a similar result to what Mark will talk about in a second.
We'll just do one more and then we'll go over to Mark.
Just while the wintering, you were talking about wintering a second ago, as an outsider coming into New Zealand and having tried all the different systems back in Ireland and knowing the environmental pressures that are going to come on in New Zealand and that are here already, what do you see as the best best practice going forward for New Zealanders to wintering cows profitably off farm?
And for me, I suppose there is no answer to that because New Zealand is so big in terms of the length of it, and in different regions there'll be different options. And when you're growing 20 or 25 kilos a day in terms over the winter period, well then wintering your cows on is a very simple option in terms of just having grazing the farm. Your demand for dry cows is only 7 to 8 kilos, so you can winter them on quite easily. As you move further down, I think the options will be different, and maybe, and I don't know the answer, maybe the options for using land, for us, winter feed costs are not massive costs in our systems anymore. So I think the housing option might be for the fur right down at the bottom might be an option. But I think essentially the one risk or the one thing I would just mention is that fodder beet. There is a slight risk with fodder beet, which are environmental restrictions, and the potential for further environmental restrictions if your water quality doesn't improve. I would be slightly concerned about fodder beet, and it's something that you just have to think about from your own system. But that's an Irish context. I don't know what your winters are like here, so maybe you don't get near as much rain as we do over the winter. So maybe it's not an issue.
I just think, did you want to just clarify, like well, you said housing, but like open cubicles is probably what. Do you want to just describe it?
Yeah, so the topless cubicles are essentially they're just ordinary cubicles with no roof, and I've just mentioned that about 600 euros per cow is the cost. So they're relatively, they're not massively expensive. If you put a shed over it, it could add another 1,000 euros per cow onto the cost.